Thanks for joining me, everyone. Today, I am excited to talk to Stacey. As I mentioned to others, and I have a series of these, I went to TBEX for the first time this year, learned a lot. It's more than just travel bloggers, also. So, welcome, Stacey. Let's talk about TBEX.
Hey, good to be with you, April. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, was this your first TBEX? Or how many times have you been to TBEX?
Well, this TBEX was Eau Claire, Wisconsin. It was my sixth TBEX. So I've been to Spain, I was in Greece, I was in Phuket, started at Finger Lakes, and have also done Billings, Montana. So it's obviously I really like TBEX and keep coming back for more. So
Yeah. So, why, when you go to TBACs, do you have a purpose as such? What would you say your goal is? Because I know you do a lot. You wear a lot of different hats under travel.
I do. So the reason I went to the TBEX in Eau Claire was to learn more about AI. So I was really interested in how I can use AI as a tool. I was also interested to talk to other bloggers about their ethics and their understanding and trying to put my head around that. So I guess I would say I go to TBEX for lots of different reasons, depending on the venue. A lot of times I will go, say I went to Greece. And so I went to Greece as an opportunity to travel in Greece. I got a few assignments before I left. So I could, I had great story ideas, and it was really a fabulous time to get to know Greece better.
Yeah, that I like that angle too, that you looked ahead, saw what was happening in Greece, and then reached out, I'm sure, to various tourism organizations or lodgings to line up some additional things, probably pre or post the conference.
I did, yes. So I always
So,
try to make those tickets worthwhile, right? When you're flying,
yeah.
wherever you're flying to, I always like to spend as much time as possible once I get there.
So when you go to these conferences, do you tend to stay at the conference hotels, or does it depend on the venue they're having it, or do you stay offsite? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I typically stay off-site, just because I travel so much that I really have to watch my budget. So typically they're in fabulous hotels, and I would love to stay in. And actually in Phuket, I stayed at the conference hotel, which was good. And but I will try to stay as close to the conference hotels I can. So if I'm in walking distance, that is extra score. So that's
Yeah,
typically what I try to do.
great. And you mentioned the sessions. There's also an aspect of TBACs, because again, this was my first time. That networking portion, is that present at all of the TBACs? Is that unique to certain TBACs? Share a little bit about that speed networking aspect.
Okay, so the speed networking aspect is part of every TBEX and every TBEX that I've been at. I think it's a great way to meet DMOs, a great way to meet people from across the world that are there specifically to meet content creators for travel. So they're really looking for someone that they want to invite to their place. And so it's a great place to put your best foot forward and get to know these people. So, one of the tips I have about that speed networking is to go into the place they're having it. So, if they're having it in a big room or if they're having it in a couple different rooms, walk through there and see where your appointments are at before you actually have to be in that situation, because basically you have 10 minutes to talk and then run to the next table and sit down and talk again. So a lot of times those tables will be set up and there's placards that say who is going to be sitting there. And so I always go and scope that out And then hopefully in all the excitement of the time, I remember where they were.
Yeah, exactly. It does move really quickly. But I also found that at least at Eau Claire, like I didn't, as a first timer, I didn't get a lot of appointments ahead of time, but the individuals were out there at those tables in between sessions, before the session. So if they were sitting there and no one was there, that was a good opportunity I felt to just even sit down and have a conversation like what they have there, because there were also some like interesting like apps too, like Braid and some other things that weren't just destinations.
Right, right. So I made some good connections with those people as well. So,
Oh, wonderful. And then pre-bex days, there were two at this conference. Do they always again have those pre-bex activities available?
well, that's kind of a funny story because typically there's one Prebex tour. So there'll be 2 days of Prebex tours, and you can select or basically apply to be in one of those 2 days. But at this TBEX, there you could actually apply for one each day, and I didn't know that. So
Oh,
I had just applied for one. Then I'm talking to one of my girlfriends on Facebook, and she says, "Oh, I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this on the second day." I'm like, "Oh, how did you get two?" And she goes, "Oh, well, we could sign up for two." So I went back to the website. Sure enough, it said right on the website you could sign up for two. But I'm almost wondering too, maybe they changed that later on. So you should, that's another tip. You should always go back and see if they've opened it up again. So,
yeah, I think that's important. And if you're not someone that uses Facebook, make, have a Facebook profile and make use of the TBEX Facebook group, because I thought that Facebook group, at least from my perspective, was really helpful. People introduced themselves, they were other bloggers, so you felt like you could have some conversations, if especially as a first timer and someone that, like for me, I'm a little bit of an introvert, and being in large gatherings can kind of be overwhelming, but connecting ahead of time, I felt like, oh, I'm going to see so and so. I had some like connections and friends ahead of time.
right. I think that's a great tip.
So, post Bex opportunities, did you participate?
So there's always a deadline for when you can apply for these trips. And I did not sign up for Eau Claire until after the deadline of
Okay.
the post trips. But there's also one thing to know that there might be an opening later on. So you want to make sure that the admins at TBEX know that you are available to do a post trip if you wish.
Yes, and I agree. I think the admins, because I had questions kind of as a first timer from the minute of after I purchased my ticket to like a couple weeks ahead of time, and they were very responsive. I had an email, and I would just email, and their response time was great. And the same thing, they would tell you like, "Oh, we still have opportunities for this," or if you're available, or even when you go to register, I know they were saying that people's plans change, things happen. So, like you were saying, the funny story about the pre events, if you are there and there's an opening, that, by telling them, like, hey, was there an opening on any of those events, you might be able to slip into something.
Yes, that's for sure. And that's one thing I really love about TBEX and the organization. I really believe that Rick and his team make you feel welcome. They want to plug you in. They want to put you in that spot if there's an opening. They want to introduce you to a DMO that is passing in the hall. They really want you to feel included. And I think that's something I don't feel at all conferences. So maybe that's one thing that keeps me coming back.
Yeah, and you mentioned other conferences, because I know there's other travel related conferences, whether you're a travel writer, there's so many ways to create content and be in the travel space. What are some of the other conferences you've attended, if you don't mind sharing, and how do you feel they compare?
Sure. So, one of the conferences that I go to almost every year is the International Food, Wine, and Travel Writers Association. And another reason I gravitate to that, I've been a member for over 10 years, is because of the mentoring there. I really felt like when I first started writing, um, some of the writers took me under their wings, and I was really able to develop a mentoring relationship with that. And so now that's what I try to do and give back in that situation. It's a smaller group, it's all volunteer organization.
Oh, wow.
So it's a different feel than TBEX, but also there's a lot of really good knowledge there. So I go back to share what I know and also pick up tips from other food, wine, and travel writers. Those content creators are doing blogs, they're writing for magazines, they're doing podcasts, some are YouTubers, so it's a good mix there as well. So I definitely give a shout out to International Food, Wine, and Travel Writers Association. On October 1st we leave Vancouver on a cruise ship and cruise down the west coast, stopping along the way for different media trips. We'll have seminars and workshops all along the way. We end up in LA where there'll be post fam trips as well.
Oh, nice. Wow, that sounds
Yeah,
fabulous. And who
it
doesn't
really
like
is.
food and wine? I mean,
Exactly. Exactly.
so are there a few other travel conferences you've attended or not so much?
I have, but it's been quite a while since I've attended some of those others. So
Yeah, because I know there's so many out there. I mean, Arrival and Women in Travel, but I noticed just as myself as a newbie, some of the price point tags on those is considerably higher. I think T-Bax makes it really approachable when you calculate that, there's meals included, they had after parties. I mean, for those 2 days, you were really pretty well taken care of outside of your lodging and maybe transportation, but
right, definitely. And the same is true for IFTWA as well. So
okay.
International Food, Wine, and Travel Writers Association might even be at least the same, if
Oh,
not even a
nice.
better price point. So
Oh, wow. That's great to
yeah.
know. Good, good. And then what about the evening activities? I know that they cram the day full of sessions. I think every day there were probably, it was kind of like going to class. I want to say there were like 4 sessions almost every day on the 2 full days. So after all that input of information and people, I know for myself, I didn't go spend a lot of time at the after parties, but did you attend some of those activities?
Yes, I do. And, typically there's food, there's drink. Like you said, you're very well taken care of. So why not go to the party? I also really love my TBEX community. So the more you go, the more people you meet. Um, you can talk with them during the party, go find somebody else you haven't talked with before, run into someone that you met at the pre-Bex tour, but you didn't really have time to, exchange cards or whatever. So it's just a great way to network. I totally love the party part of it as well.
Yeah, it does. And I've now heard that from several people that some of the best conversations and connections were actually made after 5 o'clock. Basically, I like to say after five, when you're just being more
Right,
relaxed, you're maybe eating, having a drink, and even with other attendees, building those relationships with people that can really help you in multiple ways.
right, right.
So the last question, of course, is always, are you going to attend? Wow, they have TBEX North America, Europe, and there's I guess I don't know what other continent they call the third or fourth one. They do this like 3 or 4 times every year, correct?
Yes, at least. So, I am so excited about TBEX San Sebastian.
Yes.
So that's in northern Spain in Basque Country. I It's a great foodie town. It's kind of out of the way, off the beaten path, which of course, with all this over tourism, it's good for us content creators to give our readers other places
Yes.
to go. And San Sebastian is where the Spanish go. I mean, it's one of the places the Spanish go to vacation on the beach. And yeah, so I am definitely on my way to Spain. In fact, I am now studying my Spanish more. I'm really trying hard to brush up on my Spanish. I've got until May, so
Right, right.
that's good.
Yeah, I when they announced Spain, that appealed to me too because I've honestly never been to Spain. It's been high on my list, and I like the idea too that it's not somewhere that you've heard a lot about. It's not like a Barcelona or Madrid, even though those places I need to get to as well for what they have to offer. But I love that this will give me kind of that anchor, and hopefully, I'm thinking of adding days, maybe a week ahead of time to explore other areas of Spain and make that plane ticket really worthwhile. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
super excited. Well, thank you, Stacey, for sharing about TBEX. I'm going to include the TBEX website, of course. I highly encourage, I have a few other videos for people considering TBEX if you're a travel writer, YouTuber, podcaster, just, have a love of travel, even just to get started being a part of this community. I highly suggest TBEX. And Stacy, go ahead and tell people where they can find your website if they want to ask you, since you've been there 5 times. I mean,
Right. Shoot me an email at unstoppablestacytravel.com. So that's my blog, Unstoppable Stacey with a EY travel.com. And I'm sure you'll include it in the footnotes.
thank you.